Here's a build I completed last year in, I think, June of 2019. And I had posted this to my Tumblr account at the time. So this is just a photographic build of this kit that I had posted on there. But in light of what I'm going to be doing future videos on, I thought I would just put together this video to explain this. So yeah, so this is the Academy 1/72nd scale Curtis P-40 Tomahawk. And so I bought this model kit used at Otakara, which was, well, it's in Fuji, but they changed their name to something else. I forget what the new name is, but it's one of those big, huge buildings that have all sorts of used media, like DVDs, CDs, tons of anime stuff, action figures, toys, model kits, you name it, clothing, fishing supplies, etc. And so I found out from my imaginary friend Rebels at Cloud9 that the molds for this kit were originally made by a model company called Frog, which he says is meant to stand for flies right off the ground. So this model kit's from the 60s, but it has recessed panel lines, so I think perhaps somewhere down the road it had been retooled, but in many places the panel lines are rather shallow. Maybe it's due to being over polished. You know, the molds are being over polished over the years. I have no idea. But anyhow, so the decals for this kit are for the 3rd Pursuit Squadron, Hells Angels number 68, Charles Older. Since this model isn't a very accurate or particularly detailed kit, I just figured I was just gonna feature this on my Tumblr account instead of my YouTube. But anyhow, there's some stuff I do want to talk about in this kit, so that's why I'm gonna do this video here. So yeah, as you can see here, the detail is pretty sparse. I used my scriber to rescribe several of the panel lines. I started doing this actually it was a few years prior, before I really even knew anything about scribing. So it was a bit sloppy, so I went over the model again by scribing, by using the scribing tape and a better scriber. So here you could see the GSI Krios scriber that I had. The first thing I had was just like a sloppy wood engraver that really wasn't that good for doing straight lines or anything. So yeah, this was in June of 2018 is when I was doing this work here. So in this picture here, you can see I've tried to add a few lines. And it's not the best scribing job, of course, but it's my first real attempt at it. At the time, of course. I mean, I've scribed some lines since then, but still really haven't gotten the use of it. So here is the scribing tape. I used it, this is by Haiku Parts, but many people may use Dymo tape instead. I used some Mr. Surfacer to cover up some of my mistakes that I had done with the scriber. You know, just kind of flies out of the panel line, and I end up scratching a line, and didn't look so good. So the detail in the wheel wells, it's pretty bad actually. So I made the decision to build this kit with the wheels in the up, you know, in flight mode. So fortunately, this, even for an old kit, this does have optional parts for doing this with the landing gears down or up. So that's nice, and I wish every kit would provide this, but unfortunately that's not the case. The downside to this is that I wouldn't use the decals for those red, white, and blue spirals that were really distinctive to the Flying Tigers. So I cemented the tops of the wings to the bottom and used plenty of clamps to ensure that the assembly stayed shut as the cement fused the parts together and dried completely. I airbrushed the pilot with Mr. Base White, and then I used Mr. Color 112 Character Flesh 2 in my airbrush. I then hand painted the rest. His jacket and flight cap are Tamiya XF10 flat brown. His pants are Mr. Hobby H81 khaki, and his shirt is H79 dark yellow. His goggles and boots were painted black. After airbrushing a gloss coat on him, I touched his face a bit with Citadel's Ryklan's Flesh Shade, but I don't think it made much of a difference really due to the lack of detail. So, whatever. It's just an older kid anyways. I finished him up with a flat coat of flat acrylic clear. Once the pilot was finished, I could assemble the cockpit. I clamped the left and right fuselage halves together as the cement fused the parts together. After that, the floor of the cockpit fits in from underneath. There's probably a bit too much room in this cockpit, but again, I'm not setting out to make a fantastic model. This was just practice. And actually, I just, practice for, I want to build as many various P-40 kits as I can. So, this is the first one. As you can see in the picture, it doesn't look quite right. I could have moved it back more, the guy's seat, but the instrument panel would have been too far forward, so if I put his seat forward more, there would have been a big gap behind him. So it just didn't work out right. The instrument panel was painted flat black, and I just dry brushed silver enamel paint onto the raised detail. The green, interior green is a Model Master Acryl interior green, number 4736. And here I've clamped the fuselage to the wings as the cement dries. Model Master Acrylic interior green, from what I have researched, is far more accurate to the green color than like Mr. Hobby's interior green. It just doesn't, it's not the same color, I don't think. And actually the FS number on the Model Master Acrylic interior green matches up the FS number to the Academy's 148 scale P-40, and you're going to see a build on that for sure soon. So here in the picture above, I am attaching the horizontal stabilizers, and here I have painted the wheel wells with the same Model Master interior green that I used on the cockpit. This is supposed to be accurate, so from pictures I've seen, I think this is pretty good color green. Not wanting to attach the canopy before priming so as not to add too many layers of paint onto the clear plastic, I instead stuffed the cockpit with cotton and used masking solution to ensure that it was sealed. So you can see, look at the nasty seam on the left wing, so that needed to be puttied in. I used Mr. Dissolved Putty to fill in the cracks, and then I used acetone to wipe off the excess with a cotton swab. I used Blue Tack by Loctite to fill in the wheel wells that I had painted green. The plane was then ready for priming with Mr. Surfacer 1000. So here are the paints that I used for the exterior. Okay, so this is a flat black XF1 for the propellers, sky gray XF19 for the underside, XF26 deep green, and XF52 flat earth, flat earth, sorry, every time, for the camouflage scheme. XF85 rubber black for the tires. And lastly, Model Master Acryl 4721 Insignia yellow for the propeller tips. So the first color to go down was Flat Earth, since it's the main color. P-40 Warhawk planes with a desert scheme will use Middlestone instead. Now, for example, the 48 scale Bronco Flying Tigers kit, it calls for Middlestone, but that is incorrect. You don't want to do that. You're going to use Flat Earth instead. I used blue tack to outline the camo scheme, and then I filled in the middle parts with masking tape. I found this to be much better than masking the whole area with the blue tack. Actually, the first time I ever did that was with my eggplane flinker, and it was kind of messy, so didn't do that again. So here is the finished result. I think it looks pretty nice. Actually, you can see here in this picture that the gun's kind of busted off. I had to re-glue those. I had to reattach those. So the sky gray on the bottom looked terrible, though. So yeah, actually, I had painted the sky gray first on bottom, then I masked it off, and then I did the two tones on the top. So after I removed the masking tape, the tape had left a terrible pattern on the underside, and this really kind of just made me frustrated, and I shelved this kit for close to a year, and I was just really frustrated. And little did I know, though, that after doing some wet sanding, simply applying a gloss coat of Tamiya X22 clear made this pattern totally disappear. So yeah, it was about a year in between, pretty much, pretty close to a year, when I had done the sky gray. And when I painted up the kit. So here, after removing the masking, it looked pretty bad. And so I don't know, maybe I did not allow the paint enough time to cure. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just was very disheartened and shelved it for many long months, close to a year or so. So yeah, I wet sanded the paint, and I was planning to just paint it all over again, but after wet sanding, the ugly masking tape pattern, it was still there, but I had the idea, maybe I'll just give it a coat of clear, and just to see what would happen, and the crappy pattern disappeared. Pretty nice. So there you go. I was very relieved. So after the gloss coat dried, I was able to apply the decals. Since I didn't get the sides well enough with the gloss X22, the tops and bottoms of the wings, I did just that, pretty nicely, but the sides, I guess I didn't spray it well enough. I had to use Mr. Mark Setter to get the side decals to set well. And check out the Republic of China roundel on the wing there. The white and blue did not line up during the printing process for the decals. So this is a rather old Academy kit, and the decals are a bit sloppy. So I looked up on ScaleMates, and this particular kit with this box is from 1987. So the white ink on the decals looked nearly invisible on the paper backing, right? I didn't really become visible until I soaked them in warm water. But by then it was a little bit too late to trim off the excess off of the roundels. So, yeah, oops. So now here the decaling is complete. So again, this kit is from 1987, and I just bought it used, right? But the decals went down fairly nicely, though. They were a little stubborn to take off, of the backing, you know, off the paper, but with a little bit of coaxing, they slid off without too many difficulties. The shark mouth was the most difficult. There are two different Hell's Angels logos, and I think you only need one on one side. I guess Charles Older, I don't know, I'll have to look up, see if he had another Hell's Angel on the other side or not. So the kit actually has two sizes of the Republic of China roundels, and I made a mistake of putting the larger ones on the bottom of the wings and not on the top. So the larger ones need to go on the top, not on the bottom. But oh, well, at least I was consistent with my mistake. I don't have, like, you know, the left and the right two different sizes. That would look pretty bad, I guess. Yeah. So the mistake isn't totally that noticeable, so that's good. The tiger mouth was difficult for me to line up, particularly since the sides did not get a good enough gloss surface coat. I still was able to get them on. One thing is that the red vertical stripe indicating the 3rd Pursuit Squadron was way longer than it needed to be. I ended up trimming a bunch of it off. So I used Tamiya's dark brown panel line accent color to get the panel lines on the top of the P-40. I used Tamiya's dark gray panel line accent color for the underside. Excess was removed with a cotton swab soaked in enamel thinner. And since the decals really kind of bothered me, what I did was I had just hand painted some of the dark earth and the deep green, and also the sky gray on the bottom side to cover up the white part that was sticking out to where the decal hadn't been aligned properly. After a flat coat from Mr. Hobby Top Coat Flat acrylic, it was ready for weathering. So I used Novell Carre Pastel Chalk Color number 54 Brown Ochre. So I scraped the chalk with my hobby knife and made a nice little pile on my paper towel. I used a makeup applicator to brush it on. Believe it or not, many women believe that God made a mistake when he created them, and that in his error he neglected to make their eyelids sparkly purple or some crap like that. Go figure. But these are useful for weathering your model, though. So this helped to create a filtering layer to reduce the contrast between the two colors. Made it look nice and dirty. It was nice. After another flat coat, I used Tamiya Enamel XF16 flat aluminum to create paint chips. I knowingly went a bit overboard on this model because I wanted to practice my brush strokes in accomplishing this step. Never quite totally done this before. I mean, I guess I kind of have, but I just, yeah, I intentionally just kind of went overboard. Whatever. So back to the chalks. I used black pastel chalk to create smoke streaks for the guns. And I also did the same for the engine exhausts. You'll see that I did go a bit overboard with the aluminum paint, in this picture especially. And look how offset the Hell's Angel decal is. That is just so disappointing. And it makes me wonder, maybe that's the reason why Academy, on their other Warhawk kits that I have, they have the white parts as separate decals, and then you put the colored on top of them. I don't know, maybe that's the reason why. I have no idea. Next, I used Tamiya X10 gunmetal to paint the guns. Now here's a display stand by Doyusha. I've shown these in my my channel updates before. You just need to drill a 3.5mm hole in your model to rest it on this stand. So here's the plane mounted on the stand. Then I realized that I forgot to paint the exhaust. Oops. I mixed XF56 metallic gray with XF10 flat brown to get the desired color and carefully painted it on. And here you can see I have hand painted the exhaust pipes. So here is the finished product. Again, I really went overboard here, but then again, I was just trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. I made a mistake. This is not supposed to be interior green. This is supposed to match the camouflage patterns, and the clear glue that I used, it doesn't really dry very clear at all. I'm really not happy. This is by Simidine. I'm going to try to avoid using that from now on. The Flying Tiger decal doesn't look too bad, but again, this is just blah. No good. Now, here you can maybe see some of the brushwork that I had done along here to cover up the white. The pitot tube is like extremely short, but at least it didn't bust off, so that's good. A couple of the guns did on the wings, but you know, whatever. I was able to take care of that. So the guns on the nose here, I painted those as well, of course. Now the propeller doesn't spin because I kind of made a mistake when I was assembling this. So if you look at it from this angle and if you look at it from this angle, the shark mouth doesn't look so bad, but looking at it from here, it's kind of got a little bit screwed up here, and you could see how this line here, the mouth goes up and over the line, and on this angle it doesn't. So this actually looks nicer, but oh well, what are you gonna do? The little man inside looks more or less alright. You can't really see much of the detail inside anyway, so that's kind of good, right? So who cares? The instrumentation is just barely visible, and with that dry brushing I did, it actually looks kind of cool. I don't know if this is gonna get in there or not, but yeah, it looks pretty nice. So on the bottom here are the wheels, of course. So the ochre that I used for weathering it made a really nice dusty color, and so I did the P-40C variant, which has the drop tank, and this worked out really nice because all I had to do is get a 3.5 drill bit and then just drill a hole into there, and then there you go. And since the thing is so light, it's not top heavy at all, so if you want to, you can, you know, have it at like an angle or whatever. It's pretty cool. So there you have it, and I just wanted to show this because I'm going to be working on a whole bunch more of these Flying Tigers P-40 Warhawk planes. I've already started several of them this year. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.